Hi, everybody. Welcome to our September 2nd So What Zoomcast. We had a little excitement. We had a hacker visit us. Hopefully, he's gone. I'm coming to you from beautiful Palm Bay, Florida. And my co-host, Deb Stanley, she's up there in Matawan, New Jersey. There she is. Hi, Deb.
Hi.
Okay. And before we get to our guest, I want to thank our sponsors, Fox Chapel Publishing, Banyan Batiks, QuiltWoman.com, and our new sponsor, Cheryl Lynch Quilts. Cheryl does the mini mosaics, and she was a guest, I believe, in June to talk about them. And she has a new fabric collection coming out. We hope to bring her back so she can share that with you. We are recording. We will post this to YouTube. So make sure you keep your clothes on. So I'm going to introduce our guest. Spotlight Carole. Hi, Carole.
Hello, everybody. Hello.
So
I see a few familiar faces and names.
Yeah. Hey, before we go any further, I forgot, in my bottle today, because I don't just drink a glass, is Oyster Bay Sauvignon Blanc. Okay. And because I get excited, I will give myself, I'm not even going to ask Siobhan. That's a ding dong or me. So, all right, Deb. So what's
Don't even bother. You know I'm not drinking. I ought to be Coca-Cola ought to be our sponsor because I only drink Coke Zero.
Okay. Now we're going to our guest. Hi, Carole again.
Hello again.
Now you're speaking, so you get a pass. But do you have anything interesting in your glass today?
Water, tap water at that.
All right. We'll give you a ding dong. We appreciate you being here.
Yeah, I have a rule now. It's got to be 5 o'clock here in Sarasota.
I'm glad you said that here.
Because otherwise I wouldn't get any of this kind of stuff done.
Yeah, where did we meet? We met at North Carolina Quilt Symposium.
North Carolina Quilt Symposium, the last one.
Yep.
The last one. So
And,
it was, but we had a good time, you and I.
We
We
did.
ended up riding around in a car. Were we going to the airport or something?
Yeah, with that guy and his wife. And
yes.
yeah,
Yes.
that was strange. Whatever.
It was interesting.
We had a good time.
We did. I was so sorry to see the symposium, hosts say, that's it, we're done.
Yeah.
But they wouldn't have done it this year anyway, so
it's a lot of work. And you're over on the west coast of Florida.
I am. Right now, we're calling ourselves the Lucky Coast because we keep getting dodged by the hurricanes, knock on wood. that keeps up. But we're always prepared, and, it's going to do what it's going to do. But yeah, I'm near Sarasota, just south of Tampa.
Okay. Now, you are, you're not from here, though. You're from up north.
Yes, I'm originally from Baltimore, Maryland, and I grew up there. That's where I started quilting. Shout out to the African American quilters of Baltimore, because when I started quilting, Angel sat on my shoulder and said, make some quilts for those lovely nieces and nephews. So I said, sure, I'm smart, I can learn to do this. So I got some books, and I watched, the woman who throws the her shoulder.
Eleanor,
right. In fact, I met Eleanor. I was in California a few years ago, and I went to her space, her place, and she toured a little group of us around. I was so fangirling. It was so cool. But anyway, let me stop rambling.
Cool. So how did you get into modern quilting as opposed to traditional quilting?
Yeah, I stayed in traditional quilting about 2 minutes when I started quilting probably 30 years ago now. I don't want to count. But I got the books and, I watched Eleanor and I loved her because she was like, yeah, you just cut it and you just, that's, blah, blah, blah. And I loved that free and easy way she had about the whole quilting thing, because the other messages were, it's got to be precise and it's got to match. And that was not my thing. But then I discovered art quilting. And when I joined the African American Quilters of Baltimore, that was primarily at that time a group of very traditional quilters, with one exception, maybe two, who were really focused on fundamental skills. And I'm talking about the ladies who can do like 10 and 12 stitches to an inch with hand quilting. That's who taught me to quilt. So they were kind and patient, because they looked at my art quilts that I was starting to do and they said, these are so interesting and your regular quilts are so interesting, but you really need to learn how to sew so they won't fall apart on you. So they taught me a lot of fundamentals. Then I took other courses and, do what we all do to learn this wonderful craft. But when I was doing art quilts, some of my art quilts were really modern quilts. Unfortunately, I wasn't smart enough to figure out to name it. I was just doing this thing because I was more influenced by modern art than I was traditional quilting. Although I love traditional quilting, but that's not where my aesthetic comes from. So fast forward, I moved to Sarasota with my husband in 2012, and we didn't have a community here. I knew one person who wintered occasionally in Venice, but didn't know anybody. So I do what I do, which is I went and found people. And that's how I found a wonderful woman, Jody. She and I were both individual members of the Modern Quilt Guild, because, in the middle of all this, I discovered there was something actually called modern quilting, and it looked like what I was doing in some of my art quilts. So she and I got linked up and we decided to start a guild here in Sarasota. And we naively, now that I look back, thought there'd be 10, 12 people maybe we'd find. That was the number of people at the first meeting in my house, my little tiny living room. So we found some free space at the library and we grew really fast as the word spread. We put out a few flyers at a couple of the quilt shops, thinking, oh, we'll find 4 or 5 more people. Yeah, right. So we ended up with 55 members and we said, oh, we got to cap this because our room is only so big. And we started a wait list, which really got ridiculous long, stupid long. And because we were fun, not like the big traditional guilds, which were so big, people couldn't really connect, but we were small. Because we might get 30, 40 or so people at a meeting and you could connect, and we taught each other stuff. We had classes where we were teaching each other. So we were really relaxed, informal. We said we don't want to do shows. We don't want to do competitions. We're not giving out any ribbons. We're just here to teach each other about modern quilting. So a couple of years ago, a second Modern Quilt Guild started in Sarasota, and they're called the South Sarasota Modern Quilt Guild. So they are our sister guild. A lot of people from our wait list joined that guild, and we were so happy that they started a second guild, and they had bigger space that was available to them, so they could be, I guess there are about 70 or so members now, maybe more. But we do a joint show in February outdoors. We rent a pavilion at one of the local parks, and we hang our quilts on clotheslines. We give no ribbons. There are no prizes. Every member can just hang it. The only thing we ask is that it be modern, somewhere in the modern world. And that means modern traditional to whatever. And we do have some members who are really prolific art quilters still. So, you know, they hang some stuff too here and there, but it's modernish. So we do that with them once a year.
Is there a defined boundary, if you will, between traditional, modern art quilts?
There's a very defined boundary between traditional and modern. And I'll come back to art. Don't let me forget that. The kinship we have with traditional and modern is that we're all coming from the same base of squares, rectangles, and triangles and curves. I mean, we're all using the same block forms. But where we move away from tradition is in the space we fill, the way we fill the space. So we take that traditional grid, 5 8-inch squares across by 6 down, you know the thing. And we start erasing lines. That's one way I describe it, so that we fill some of that space with what we call negative space. That is a background fabric. So instead of a pieced block everywhere you might expect one, you'll see unpieced areas, for example. That's one of the principles. So that's a principle that really distinguishes some modern from most traditional quilts. But we also, in modern quilting, we have a whole list of design principles that are really generated out of modern art. Minimalism comes straight out of mid-century modern art. Negative space, the saturated colors that you see in some modern quilts. Although they're also, I don't know if I have one here. I was looking on my table here. But anyway, there are also fabrics that are used in modern quilting that are more minimalist, that is low volume prints. So we use a very different color palette. We play with the grid. We erase the grid. We play with small piecing, and we play with scale going the other way, large piecing. So the blocks behind me are 16.5-inch square blocks. This is Parisian curve scale. And we also just play with every notion and design principle from traditional, and we see, how do we reinvent that? How do we make it different? How do we make it fresh? So modern quilting is emerging and evolving. One of the most recent design principles is maximalism. And this quilt that's taking shape behind me is an example of maximalism in its color, use of color. Very saturated colors, and actually no negative space color. There's no dominant color here that would be the negative space. And that's another principle of maximalism. Now, art quilts, the boundary between modern and art are a couple things. One is that an art quilt is designed to be an aesthetic object, just like a painting or a sculpture or any piece of art that you would put in your home to admire. If you're making teapots that are art objects, you're not going to make tea in them. Now, it may be an aesthetically pleasing hand-shaped clay pot, but it's made to be used. Modern quilts are made to be used. They're made to be washed. They're made to be put on the bed. Yes, there are people who will hang their modern quilt on the wall because they just want to look at it. That's their choice. But that's part of the boundary. The other boundary for me that I see, because I spent more time in the art quilt world than I have so far in the modern world. In art quilting, the quilt artist is often doing something to the surface of that fabric. And they're using sometimes very non-traditional, even non-fabric materials to make that piece. It's tied to the traditional quilting in that it has 3 layers. I think the Studio Art Quilt Association, for their shows, one of their requirements is that your piece has to have 3 layers. I think that's still true. 3 layers, like a quilt, a traditional or modern quilt. But other than that, you can do anything you want with it. You can make it out of barbed wire as long as there are 3 layers to it. So yeah, that's my way of differentiating, and it helps me when I'm working because I still sometimes say to myself, is my intention to make a quilt, like this quilt on the wall back here? I could hang this as an art quilt if I wanted to, particularly depending on what I did with the quilting.
You can hang that on the wall in my house too.
Thank you.
You didn't have any place to
I'll
put it.
send you an invoice. But I haven't painted this fabric. I'm not printing on it. Although now I say that, but at QuiltCon, our annual conference, for at least the last 3 or 4 years that I can recall, we've had workshops on printing on your fabric using fabric paints. As long as it's washable, you can, use it and wash it, use it and wash it. That's kind of the core, one of the core principles of modern quilting. It's a utilitarian object. It may be extremely beautiful and it's still usable. I hope that helps and not confused.
Yeah. Now, before Debbie has some questions, before she
Sure.
does, if you guys have questions, put them in the chat and we will relay them to Carole. So you got a couple minutes. Deb, you ready? Or
Shoot.
gotta unmute her.
Ah,
I think she froze.
Okay. Are there specific colors that are used more often in modern quilts?
no, not anymore. In the very early days when people like Denise Schmidt, she always is the first person that comes to mind for me, but there are others who started articulating modern quilts, articulating the design aesthetic of modern quilts. And there are a list of like 8 or 9, 10 maybe key design principles, and I've only mentioned a couple of them. But when we first started making modern quilts, there weren't a lot of, first of all, there weren't a lot of solid colors available. It was very much Amish quilts and Amish colors, sort of those muted, et cetera, colors, and that you could find solids in. And in the prints, we didn't want to use those calicos. I'm going to stop hitting the table. We didn't want to use those little tiny calicos. We wanted bolder and more vibrant colors. And now when I started making modern quilts, I found most of my fabrics, 100% cotton, in the dress area of Joann Fabrics and then bigger fabric stores. Because in the quilt section, it was all little tiny flowers and little tiny dots and all that kind of stuff. That was not my style at all. I wanted something more bold and graphic and interesting. So that's where I found many of my early prints. And until very recently, I still had a few of those fabrics in my old stash, and they seem just as fresh and modern today as they did when I bought them. Did I answer the question? I know I talked a lot.
There are some companies that are making, modern fabrics.
Yes.
Which tend to be very graphic in nature. Do most people still use a lot of solids or?
Yes, we still use lots of solids. Also in the fabric making world, and the fabric manufacturers were ecstatic when modern quilting started to emerge, because all of us who've been quilting a while, we had our stash and we weren't buying a lot of fabric. I mean, we were buying fabric, but we're not in the amounts that we had been buying 10 or 15 years ago. So when modern quilters emerged, they said, we want more colors, we want deeper, richer, more saturated colors, and we want something called low volume. Now I'll hold this up. This is kind of an example of a type of low volume. It's not as low volume as some others. I can grab one later, but so there's two, well, there's more than two, but there's two ends, if you will, of the fabric color continuum. It could be very saturated. This fabric that you see here is grunge, which is embraced by a lot of both modern and traditional quilters, because it reads almost like a solid, but there's a little bit of texture to it. I use a lot of ombres I use primarily the Gelato ombres by Schenck, Maywood Studios. But we also use small prints like this one, very, very small prints. And this is getting into the other end of scale in the prints. So really, you can use almost any fabric, almost any fabric in a modern quilt, as long as you keep the design principles in mind. So I have students who come to my classes who have like patriotic prints, and I even wrote a book with patriotic modern prints or quilts, but some have come, I would say, almost Civil War kind of colors. Now, we have to be very careful and creative when they're bringing a more traditional palette, but if they're using them and keeping in mind value change, that's one of the principles of modern quilting. We want to see the value change most of the time from light to medium to dark. Which gets me to one other thing about fabric. One of the myths kind of out there is that you cannot use batiks in a modern quilt. And I say it's a myth. A very, very well-respected modern quilter was interviewed years ago, and somebody asked about batiks. And she said, well, you know, you really can't use batiks successfully in modern quilts. But they forget what she said after that. She was really talking about the fact that at the time, most batiks were a medium value. So you couldn't see the value change. And in modern quilting, you usually see value change, dark, medium to light. But today, there are lines of modern batiks. Allison Glass Fabrics are batiks. Her name just went out of my head, but she's over in England, and she started out doing hand printed fabrics, and now she's got fabric line. But some of her fabrics are batiks. The Me Plus You line of batiks is a modern batik. And the motifs are different. You don't see the, you know, palm fronds and, you know, turtles swimming on the fabric. You see.
That's my fabric.
Oh, Linda, that's you. And it's not just modern fabric, but in a modern batik, it's going to be more geometrics. I mean, that's one way you can tell right off the bat. You'll see more lines and crosses, etc. So, you know, I never say never about fabric that you can use. I think it's a challenge to use really traditional fabrics and make the quilt modern. And the fundamental challenge is in value. That's usually where my students struggle. So they have to run out to the shop if we're at a conference and buy some lights and darks to throw in there and get some value change.
When you teach classes, do you do fabric kits at all?
Do I do fabric
Kits?
No, I don't do any kits. I don't want to work that hard.
Yes. Some people do.
That's hard work.
I don't.
I admire people who do it. What I do in my supply list is I try to give people several different examples of very different fabric groupings. Like I'll give them an example with grunge, or I'll give them an example with these ombres, for example. I'll give them an example with more muted prints or low volume prints. So I try to show people you can go with your own taste, but here are some key things to keep in mind. Value change, and by that I mean fabrics that will read light, medium, and dark. In the quilt behind me on the wall, the darkest value is that purple that's just over this shoulder. The lightest value is going to be that yellow, and then this green here, which are changes over the spectrum of a piece of fabric. And with most modern quilts, you want to see differences in values, which doesn't mean you always have to have, black or really deep. It's all relative to each other. And the technique I teach my students, and lots of us use it, I didn't invent this. Take 2 pictures of your fabric pull for a modern quilt, and actually for almost any quilt, traditional and modern. Take 2 photographs with your camera phone. Convert one of those photographs to monochrome, not black and white, but monochrome, and see which of those fabrics read dark, which ones read light, which ones read medium. You may be surprised, because color fools our eye. And we think that something is a deep value when relative to the other fabrics it's with, it may read more like a medium. I had actually a student of mine posted a finished quilt on Instagram a week or so ago, and she did a blog post, and she was so cute, so funny. She said, I sent my fabric, the image of my fabrics, to Carole, and I didn't like her feedback because she said I needed more dark values. So I asked another friend, and they said, you need more dark values. So Carole was right. She wrote it, and it was so cute. I mean, I just laughed out loud. But yeah, I mean, that's a mistake a lot of quilters make, even with traditional quilts. They choose these lovely colors and everything's the same value, so the design doesn't pop for you, whether you're doing half square triangles or, stars or whatever you're doing. You want the design element to pop out somehow. And if it doesn't, you've probably confused the values.
Debbie got one more question, and then we're going to go to chat because we're starting to get a whole bunch of questions in the chat. Go ahead, Deb.
What about the actual quilting? Is there a specific way of quilting modern quilts as opposed to just an all over with butterflies or whatever?
Oh, that's a great question, Deborah. I have a sister named Deborah. Yes, most modern quilters are leaning towards more geometric based quilt designs. So most of the time you will not see those paisley kind of looking feathers in the quilting of a modern quilt. It's just not the same design aesthetic. So I send all my stuff, not all of it, almost all of it, to Long Armors. And mainly they're doing edge to edge. Occasionally I'll have them do some custom stuff. But I look, and then we talk about the designs they're going to use. And it may be, a bunch of nested kind of squares, and maybe the squares won't have sharp edges. They'll have more of almost a rounded edge to it. So it's kind of mid-century modern. Mm-hmm. So yeah, the quilting should be compatible with your overall block design aesthetic, what you're trying to achieve there. One of the things that some people think is that it has to be straight line quilted, and that is a very popular form of quilting a modern quilt, but we use a lot of different motifs, including free motion quilting on your domestic machine. A good person to look at for that is Leah. What's her name?
Oh,
Leah.
Leah Day. Leah
Le-
Day.
Thank you. She has a lot of tutorials on that, as does Angela Walters. So there are just a couple of people that come to mind who are really very skilled at that.
doesn't Jody Robinson have some stuff going on?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that.
Jody Robinson, I think I took a class with her for modern quilting.
Yeah,
We can't hear you, Linda.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
yeah,
Yeah.
People, you can't hear me?
Yeah.
yeah, you
It
faded.
sounds muted.
She was asking about Jody Robinson and her quilting design.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with her. No.
Okay.
Oh, a lot of my
She just
Well,
won
we have some
modern
we
quilting.
have some questions on the chat.
Okay.
The first question was, do you dye your own fabric?
No, no, I don't do chemicals. That's too much work. I rarely buy hand dyes because I just like commercial fabrics. I just do. And I buy a lot of commercial prints as well as solids. And you can see this stripe in here, over there, that stripe. I love irregular stripes, so I buy a ton of those, a yard or two when I see them, because I use them as, you know, design elements. They do a lot of work for you. I use a lot of Moda Grunge and the ombres, of course, and some prints.
Do modern quilts need 3 layers and to be
Yes.
quilted?
Yes, because a modern quilt is a utilitarian object. We modern quilters say we are quilters, and just like traditional quilters, we want you to put that thing on the bed and cuddle under it, or watch TV under it, or go camping, or whatever you're going to do. They are objects made to be used.
Do you have, when you start a quilt, do you have a specific plan, a design ahead of time, or you just grab fabrics and start stitching?
I usually have a technique plan and a color plan. So for this quilt behind me, this is the Improv Curves, big scale, upscale. And I knew I wanted to make this a new version using ombres and grunge. So, and I wanted it to be extremely saturated color. This is more maximalist in color. So that was all floating around in my head. So I sometimes start with a color story that I want to play with. I've made my mid-century modern quilt 4 or 5 times now, and one of them I said I'm going to do a 2-color quilt, and so I made one in black and white with black solid, white solids, and a couple of black and white prints. So yeah, sometimes I'll start with the color story, and then I'll usually start with a design element that I want to play with. However, I also do a lot of pattern design and quilt pattern design in EQ8. And there I might say, I think I'm going to play with half square triangles. Let's see what I can come up with on that today. And so with EQ8, those of you who use any quilt software, you know you can go down the rabbit hole and spend a lot of time designing and not make a single quilt if you're not careful. So yeah, sometimes I do. Sometimes I just feel like playing improvisationally, but usually it's color that starts me when I'm just playing. I'm usually thinking, I haven't done anything with any low volume prints recently. Let me go play for a while. And nothing may come of it. I may just play, make a few blocks, and then they go in the scrap bin for a scrap type quilt if I'm not, you know, excited about what's emerging. Great
Yeah,
questions.
Yeah, we are getting good questions.
Are there any modern quilters who hand quilt or,
Oh,
or use
hand piece
specialty
and
threads, or what kind of quilting?
hand piece and hand quilt. At QuiltCon, which is the Modern Quilt Guild, which is a big formal organization of modern quilters, although not all modern quilters belong to the Modern Quilt Guild at all. But we have a number of categories for our show there, our annual show, and we have a category called Modern Traditional, where you have to show that your design is very rooted in a traditional block or layout or something. It has to be evident where you started from. But we also have a category for handwork, hand piecing and hand quilting, and we give prizes for that. Now, some modern quilters also add hand quilting to a machine quilted piece, and I've done that occasionally as well. And usually there we're using big stitch and the pearl threads, like number 5 embroidery thread, to have an accent element.
So that would be more of an embellishment?
It's not,
Um,
I wouldn't go so far as to call it an embellishment, because it doesn't change the fact that it's still a utilitarian quilt. When I hear the word embellishment, I go back to art quilting, where you're adding, in my case, I was adding shells and beads and, that sort of thing. Things that you would not put in your washing machine.
Okay, we're running down to the time slot. Deb.
And then the fun begins.
Yeah. Is there any controversy in the world of modern quilting? Controversy.
For a while, I think the one controversy I was aware of was the use of batiks. But then batiks, the batik manufacturers woke up and said, oh my gosh, there's millions of these modern quilters. We better make them some fabric, because they're not buying this other stuff. What will they buy? So they found some designers who figured that out. Is there any controversy? Nothing comes to mind, really. Probably, no, I will say it's not a controversy, but the one area of discussion is this barrier, this line between art quilt and modern quilt. And there are modern quilts that get hung in our show that could be entered and are entered in the art quilt category at other shows. So, it's a porous barrier.
And our last question is, can an art quilt be made to be used? And I'll answer that. My Jersey girl, yeah, you want your dog to throw up on an art quilt? Oh yeah. Have at it.
Or if you want to sleep under it, let's not go with the dog vomit. But if you want to sleep under your art quilt, go for it. In fact, and I'm one of them, because I still occasionally make an art quilt, and when I do, usually I put it on the bed, for a night. It may just be across the foot of the bed. I just like to sleep with it for a night or take a nap under it just before I say goodbye, because usually my art quilts are off to be sold or they're commissioned.
Yvonne, you really like that throw up thing. She's laughing. She's falling off her chair. Yeah. Okay. Carole, don't go away.
I won't.
Go away. Okay. I want to tell you, Carole was fabulous. Don't you girls think? It was, and she brought that shaker guy. Yay! Good job, Carole.
Probably where he came from. Oh my God. Never post on Instagram. That's the lesson.
Now, I have to tell you, my Zumba girls, there's we've been getting all kinds of alerts in our Zumba instructor network about there's somebody who crashes the Zumba classes, the Zumba Gold for the older ladies. And my girls say, bring him on. Why isn't he coming to our class? So since some of you were here, that's what we might expect at some point in time. So we're ready for him. We are ready for him. Coming up next week. Let me find her. She's probably hiding now. There she is. Coming up next week, we got the big deal at Gold Peak Media. We got Lori Baker, and she's going to talk to us about magazine stuff, all kinds of things that she does. She's a super interesting person. I talked to her for a while. She's really interesting. Really interesting life. Hi, Lori.
How are you?
Good. Are you working and you're playing with us?
I am. If you noticed, I keep turning away from the camera because I'm editing a pattern right now too.
Yep, we saw you. So you're going to be on with us next week. Yay! You're going to talk
I'm looking
all about
forward to it.
and what you do.
I am looking forward to it a lot.
Cool. Who do we got? Is Patience here? I don't see Patience. She didn't get a chance to join us. Guess what? We had to restructure the guest appearances for September. And guess who your guest is September 23rd. That would be me. Okay? And we're going to have, it's not going to be Deb, because Deb knows too much. We have Denise and Siobhan are going to be the interviewers. So if you have a story or a picture, maybe not a picture because that's too much evidence.
Want to ask Linda?
Yeah, I put Deb's email in there. So you want to email Deb and she'll forward it to Denise or Siobhan so that they can start preparing their questions. I think I'm interesting. I'm an interesting person. I am. Yeah, or send pictures if you have like incriminating pictures. And on the 30th, we have the cute Krista Moser coming, and she's going to talk to us about battings because she has a book about battings. So she's going to do that. Thing. All right. We have coming up in September. Got to listen to all this before the door prizes. We have coming up in September on Saturday, this Saturday coming. I'm doing a New York Beauty refresher course. If you've taken the class with me already and you would like a refresher on the final trim or piecing or whatever, that is on Saturday, September 5th. On September 12th, we have intro to EQ8. Have EQ8 and you want to know how to use it, I will share the secrets because that's how Deb and I design the books and all our patterns that you see in the magazines. I'll share all the shortcut keys, importing fabric, all that other stuff. On 19th, I have a guild workshop. So if you refer me to your guild or group, you'll get a free class. So that Saturday's out. On the 24th, I'll do my class first. On the 26th, we're going to do another Wicked Wahini per request. Because that's my most popular, and people have been asking for that as well. That's on the 26th. Deb is going to do one of her So Long Thursdays. You got anything to say
On the
about that?
24th at 2 o'clock is going to be, what do we call it? A pieced
I
pumpkin pot
can't
holder.
say it.
Pieced pumpkin pot holder.
I only drank half a bottle. Peach pumpkin
Pumpkin
pot holder.
pot holder.
Say that 3 times fast. And it's free. Just sign on and Deb's going to walk you through it. And our web special for this month was my shipping department, also known as our website guy and everything else. Our special this month is my quilting journal, and it has things that you can, the normal stuff with your pattern, but mine is different because it has what to take to class. So you can put the sample, the teacher's supply list in there, and then you can change it to your fabrics. So you're not, yes, always Eastern time. Always want to make sure that you have designated your fabric the same as the teacher's fabric, because you're getting a class and you're going to say, flash your fabric, and you say, what's this for? And I'm like, I have no idea what you substituted for. So you got to figure that out, and this little journal will help you. It's $10 free shipping. We're matching Amazon. So instead of sending Jeff Bezos and his bimbo du jour to the Caribbean, you'll send me and my husband to the Caribbean because they work very hard. How's that? Support your local artists. If you have somebody you'd like us to bring on, or if you have some demos you'd like done, please let us know and we will take care of that. If you are an instructor and you would like to submit to teach at Road to California, you can do that on the Road to California website. Go on the main page, all the way down on the left-hand side, you will see Teacher App. Click that button, and you can put your proposals in. Okay, we will post this on YouTube. I usually do that on Friday mornings. And we have So What Zoomcast YouTube. And then I'll post Carole's information, because I know Carole does classes and she has all kinds of things on her website. Carole, you got some books and stuff on your website?
Yes, I had to unmute myself. Yes, I have 2 books, Madly Modern Quilts and Patriotic Modern Quilts. Both are available on Amazon, and I have an Etsy shop. Everything is under my name. And on my website, I have a blog with lots of tutorials. One of my recent ones, I talk a little bit about how I quilt my modern quilts using my walking foot, but I do it very eccentrically. Someday I'll do some videos. I just haven't gotten around to it. And I, of course, teach with guilds and so forth. I don't have any public classes coming up, but I do have my on-demand class, which is Mid-Century Modern. And the blocks behind me are from the videos I'm making right now for my class that'll release later this fall on Parisian curves, upscale.
And we're going to put Carole's contact information on our So What Zoomcast page, so you can go back and contact Carole with, if you want to buy any of her stuff or take her class, or contact her to visit with your guild. So we're going to take care of you, Carole.
Thank you. Thank you.
That means we're done with all the commercials. That means it's door prize time. I get so excited with the ding dongs. Okay, for our door prizes, we have Cheryl Lynch from our new sponsor, Cheryl Lynch Quilts, and she's going to be our first pick. Hi, Cheryl. Unmute yourself.
Okay, I'm unmuted, right?
Hello. Thank you for sponsoring us.
It's my pleasure. This is such a fun show.
We tried. We tried.
You do a great job.
Are you ready to pick your winner?
Oh, I got to put gallery view, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Now review. All right, Cheryl wants to see what you got in your glass. Make sure we watch Siobhan. There she
Let's
is.
see.
Siobhan
I'm
is
looking
ready.
at something interesting because I want to make Linda laugh. I don't know, girls. Oh, Lynn, you've got something interesting. You have to unmute yourself. You're my choice. What you got?
Lynn Stone Sip, that's all I can see. Lynn,
Line and
Yeah,
Kugel
there you go. Lynn.
for Shandy.
Oh, I can't even say it.
that
Lining
looks like
Kugel.
liquor to me.
From Wisconsin.
From Wisconsin.
But you
Whoa.
can get it
That
here in
looks like liquor
Baltimore.
to me.
In Baltimore.
I don't know. What do you say,
It
people?
is liquor.
Thumbs up or
Whoa.
thumbs down? Would
Good
you
stuff.
do that?
Thumbs up.
You're looking at everybody. Oh, that means
Thumbs up. Thumbs
you got
up.
thumbs up. You got to do got to fix that. You need to put your email, please, into the chat, and we will get a hold of you and get your email to Cheryl. For all you people there that are lurking, iPad and Lori and Sienna, Susan, we need to see you, Jeanette. We need to see you for the door prize. So let's see. Where's Stevie? There's Stevie. Just lost her.
Saw her.
There she is.
Okay.
Stevie Graves. You are picking for quiltwoman.com.
Well, wait a minute. No, now the gallery section fell off. Glenda Richardson.
Let's find you. Can't find you. Glenda, there we go. Glenda, we want to see you. I can't even spotlight you. Glenda, we want to see what's in your glass. You can be shamed like everybody else. For equal opportunity. Let's see. What do you got?
Oh, see, Glenda.
She's there. She's all the way at the end.
She's at the end.
Oh, Glenda, okay.
I can't see her. See if we can get her to go. Or even unmute yourself. Can you unmute yourself, Glenda?
No.
Okay. Glenda, please put your email in the chat so we can get you your door prize. Okay. Deb, you ready? Where's Deb? Where's Deb?
Yes, okay.
Where are you?
Yeah. Right here.
Okay, do it, Deb.
Okay, let's see. Terry Beck. Terry Beck.
Terry, oh, you're right there. Terry, unmute yourself. Hello. Is this your first time? These girls are out of control.
Yes, yes, this is my first time.
Okay, so we're gonna give you a pass on what you're drinking. But what do you got in that glass?
I've got soda water and cranberry juice.
Is there any liquor in it? Got any liquor in there?
What's that?
Any liquor in there?
Nope, nope.
No. What do you think, people? Thumbs up. Siobhan gives everybody a thumbs up.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, we're going. We're pretty much tied.
I'm a 5 o'clock girl too.
We're pretty much tied. What do you think? Rosemary, I'm looking at you. What do you think? You're the deciding vote. Hello. Thumbs up or thumbs down? Thumbs up. Okay, make sure you put your email in the chat. Oh, okay. My turn. My turn. I like it. My turn. I get excited. Okay, I'm going to go over here on page 2. Okay, if I can't see you, I got to see you. Baker. Hey, Lori Baker. Hi, Lori. You're working. You're not.
Working, and so what I've got in my glass is apple juice.
Apple juice.
Yes.
I'm not even going to ask them. I'm not even going to ask them. That's apple juice. I have your email address.
Okay, cool.
And you know what? Because I know Lori, I'm going to pick another one. I'm going to go
Good
to.
idea.
I'm going to go to the first screen. All right, here we go. Ellen Nobles Harris. Spotlighting you. What do you got in your glass? You got anything going on? You got to unmute you. That don't look like, that looks like it's water.
Yeah, that's true.
Really? All right, let's get the vote. Water. Siobhan's dancing. Oh, you got like pretty much unanimous thumbs up. Hey, put
Everybody's
your email
dehydrated.
in the chat. Put your email in the chat. And we got our guest is gonna do. Do we have any more to do, Deb?
I don't think so.
Carol,
Okay,
it's your turn.
all right, okay. Luke's iPad.
Luke's iPad. I actually know who that is. Where is she?
She's on my second page.
Luke's iPad.
Yep.
Marcy, I know it's you. I know Marcy's on Luke's iPad.
Marcella.
Deb, can you find her?
Marcella. Where's Marcella?
Deb, can you find her?
I'm looking.
There she is.
There she is.
Nope, whoops.
No, that's not her.
There's Marcy.
There she is.
Marcy,
There she is.
Marcella.
Marcy, what you got anything interesting for us?
She's muted.
You're
You're
muted.
muted.
First of all, unmute yourself, and you know you might not even want to unmute yourself if you don't have anything interesting. You taking anything? You know the rules. You're muted. I can't even hear you.
Okay, here we go.
Can you unmute her, Deb?
I just tried. Unmute.
We're trying to unmute you.
I don't know.
There she
That's
goes.
not- Oh, there you go.
All
All
Okay.
right, Marcy.
Marcella.
Yes. All I have to say is that I love this. I look forward to this every Wednesday.
We look forward to you.
Thank
All right.
you.
Show us that glass.
Well, I just have ginger ale, but I have started to have a Bailey's Irish cream at
Don't go there.
night.
Don't even go there.
I'm having a Bailey's Irish cream before bedtime because I'm having trouble sleeping.
It's not bedtime. It's
No,
now.
well, that's why I just have ginger ale. That's why I
find you.
just have ginger ale.
Yeah, we'll find you. Put some
Okay.
liquor in that glass. That'll make you sleep.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't want to sleep right now. I want to watch you.
Do I pick another person?
Got another door prize? We'll
No, that's good.
we got tons of door prizes.
No, this is Carol. Is she getting
Like-
my door prize?
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. We got you.
Whoa.
Oh,
Wow.
These are all
Nice.
fat quarters from Carrie Bloomston, who's a modern modern fabric designer. And in addition to, I think, 8 or 9 fat quarters, I also threw in a half yard of this pink.
Oh my God.
So hopefully you're in the US.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
Yes.
good. Otherwise, I would have had to pivot to a different door prize if you weren't.
No, I wouldn't want to be anywhere else right now.
All I don't think they want us. Nobody wants
No.
us.
Nobody wants
No,
us.
nobody wants us.
I can't even go to Maryland without quarantining for 2 weeks.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. So we'll take anything and everything. We
Okay.
truly appreciate all our guests, and because they're donating their time to us to take your mind off of what's going on in the world, and make you smile, and give you a little information. And we try to be a little goofy just so that you're smiling, even if it's for an hour. You know what? It's an hour every week that you can just turn off the world and be happy. So next week I'm going to review. I have a new hair removal product, so I'm going to try it because I know everybody likes the things that I can review. I have a new hair removal product. I'm going to try it on my legs. I have some chin hairs. I will not do the eyebrows. They're just starting to grow in. So I'm not going to the eyebrows.
Okay.
You can find us on So What Zoomcast. My personal Facebook page is Linda J with the J. Plus, there's another, believe it or not, there's another Linda Hahn who quilts, who has a daughter, Sarah. Really? And who, I want to know, before I close this meeting, who is Sharon who says they have very interesting pictures of me? Who is that? Is that Sharon Dow? You're the only Sharon. There's only 2 Sharons on here. Somebody has incriminating stuff. And I want to know who it is. I'll find you.
It's Roxy.
Yeah, we'll get all your stuff through Siobhan and Denise. You're welcome to join us in Zumba on Monday and Wednesday mornings at 9:30 with the same channel, and sign-in information. And thank you, everybody, for coming. We will see you next week for Lori Baker.
Thank you, everybody. It was fun.
Thank you, Carol.
Thank you.
Rob.
Take care, everybody.
Thank
See
you.
Rob.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Carol.
Thank you.
You are welcome.
Thank you.
Fabulous job.
Thank you.
Fabulous job.
Thank you. Thank
Great.
you.
You were
Bye-bye.
great. Bye.
What kind of messages? Oh, that was Roxanne posted under Sharon's.
Sharon.
Yeah. I could say some names. Yeah, you do have some pictures that are probably very inappropriate. Yeah.
Wait, I never got an email from Glenda Richardson.
Glenda, yeah. She might be one of Carol's
Do you
Facebook
know
friends.
her?
No?
Do you know hers?
That was the first time she was on. That was the first time she was on. Hey, Madge, you sure you don't want to be on
I
here?
I chatted, sent her a private message. And she never answered.
Yeah. Madge, I know you want to be on here. You know I'll have a lot of fun with you.
I know, Linda. I'm trying to think where some of my pictures are. And I all my photos that I had on an old tablet are gone, lost, beyond. So I have to see if I have any actual photos from but weren't you the bunny slipper lady?
I have many things. I was the Viking.
Oh, the Viking. So, the Viking's all over the place. Everybody has that. Lots of people have the Viking. I'm going back to QPN, not MAQ.
Oh.
Linda, I'm stopping the recording.